Here's a very brief introduction to the new CCU controller that I have been working on, and it's getting to the completion stage. It's got 4 CCU controls, and it interfaces using just the normal ATEM Ethernet, and you can also power it via the Ethernet, but you can also power it using a normal 9 to 12 volt adapter, and you can also power it just off a USB. There's also a micro SD card for transferring files and stuff like that as needed. We'll go into that in a longer video much later on. The unit itself uses paddle Iris controls with pedestal knobs and push to preview buttons. Put it on the table properly there. It has paint controls for gains and blacks, and in conjunction with the shift key over here you can also do the gammas. It's got a touch screen for doing other adjustments, and it also has a joystick for doing pen and tilt, which for controlling a pen and tilt head. The white areas here you'll see in a moment will actually display tally lights, red for on air, green for on preview, and blue for when it's selected on a selected aux bus, because these push buttons on the Iris controls can also give the ability to switch a router, be it either the ATEM an ATEM aux bus or a video hub, or it can even switch a multi-view 4, which I've used in previous CCU controls. Now, one of the best things about this is that it can all power off a Ethernet cable. So if I just turn this thing around and just plug it into the back, you'll see when I do that and bring it around the front here, you'll see it'll boot up. There it is, booting up. And I'm just going to stick it on this little pillow here so you can see it more on. And there's the thing, it's just after it's booted up. I don't know whether this will, let me see if I do a little zoom in here. It comes up, and when it's booting up, it's just it will show you the variations on what's happening as it's booting up. Oh, there you go, frame it up, and then when it's finally booted up, it tells you it's connected, and it tells you what sort of an ATEM you're connected to. Zoom back out again. Well, the other way out, and yeah, if this thing will just focus for it, there you go. Now, as you can see, we have a red tally light on here. I've got an ATEM over here, and you can see that's displaying camera 4. I can switch over to camera 3, camera 2, camera 1, and as I do that, you'll see that it's changing the tally lights here. So this is just a normal, just let you know while you're doing your CCU which camera is on air and which camera is not. Over here, if I can go down tallies, oh, there you go, camera 3 on preview. You'll see camera 3 here is on preview, and if I go over to the aux bus, you can see there's camera 1 is now on the aux bus, and it shows as a blue. When its aux buses are used in conjunction with on airs or previews, the colours will change accordingly. I'm just going to go over here now and switch this over to camera. There's 4 cameras on the software control panel, and for me to start doing CCU on here, I just have to press any one of the 4 cameras, and when I do that, you'll see the status screen will follow whatever you've got selected, and as you can see there, it says it's got camera 1. And this is the normal operational screen. So as I select the cameras, I'm just going to come back here. Here's camera 2, camera 3, camera 4, and it's selecting each of the parameters for each of the cameras, so that at any time you can you can just have each camera straight at your fingertips, and you can also see that the tallies are up here as well. When you push the button, I've got this set to use aux 1, and you can see if I come back here, push the button, you can see it selects the camera, and then when I take my finger off, it toggles back to a predetermined source. And all this is all programmable. You can choose whatever source you want it to toggle back to. You can tell it not to toggle at all, just to stay fixed on whatever you've last selected. You might also notice that it's always whatever your last selected camera was, it'll always keep that up there for you to be able to immediately access any of the controls. I'm going to go into more detail in all this later on, including the paint controls. When you paint or anything like that, you can see there's a button down here called PCC, which I can't remember what it stands for, but it's Blackmagic calls it their paint control something or other, which is what they call their in-camera DaVinci controls. On the actual screen itself, you might notice there's little coloured bars over here. What these coloured bars do, that gives you the ability to be able, or shows you the range of your iris. Now, in this situation, I'll see if I can come back here. I'm not selecting the camera. I'm just looking at it on a 4-way splitter. As I pull the iris down, oh, let me zoom out so you can see. Well, the other out. As I'm pulling the iris down, the camera's exposure is changing. Oh, focus now, thank you. You can see the camera's focusing, irising up, irising down. So whatever camera you can select, iris is up and iris is down. You also might notice if I hold my finger on my hand on 2 cameras, you'll notice that both of them, and I can actually do 3 and I can do 4. There you go. And I can actually do the whole lot if I got my hand around, if I get the 4th one. Now these particular cameras I'm using here are what do you call them? Well, the first 2 cameras, 1 and 2, are just Ursa broadcast cameras. This camera here is a studio, Blackmagic studio camera. This one here's a micro studio camera. These iris controls themselves, they actually have the ability to be able to give you multi-range. I'll go into that in more detail on another video, but these ranges, you have the ability to be able to alter the range by the red bar. Oh, I'm over here. The red bar shows you the irises now will be working in full range. If I hold my finger on, I'm on camera 3 at the moment. Let me just go over to camera 1, for instance. Camera 1, there you go, camera 1. Oh, change hands. The range, you can change your range. There's a little knob over here. You see you've got red, green, blue, and RGB in your gains, and these are identical to what you've got over here on your CCU panel. You've got your gain, your RGB gains. Oh, I just lost the ATEM. But the getting back to this red bar, oh, there you go. That's a good example. I've accidentally kicked out the Ethernet cable to the ATEM, and you can see that it's now hunting for the ATEM to reconnect. You've got to make sure that when you plug your ATEM in, you don't make it easy to kick out your Ethernet. But that's a pretty good example of what happens. There you go. I just plugged it in again. It's hard to do this with one hand, but I've mentioned that in the past. With the you can see I'm moving the iris here now. You see it's displaying an F, the f-stop of the camera. So it goes all the way, when it's fully open, it goes 1.8 and pull it all the way down and it goes to F23. So these, this red bar over here, it gives you your range, and I can control that range by using the yellow knob over here, because these are your gains and these are your blacks, and you don't have the black control over here for your RGB, because that's actually your pedestal. Your pedestal is exactly the same as what this does. So I'm using this knob as an adjuster, and by using the adjuster I can use that to wind in, and you can see I'm winding in the range. So I'm allowing, what this does is it lets me not use the full range of the iris. If I want a much finer control, I can tell it just to use this little bit here of the whole iris range, and as you can see now when I do that, as I move the iris, you can see the range is moving up and down. So when you're actually using as an iris adjust, it will give you just still give you iris control, but give you a much finer control of the iris. And that's a pretty common feature that's on a lot of broadcast CCU panels. Anyhow, that will be in another video. This is just a brief introduction of all the bits and pieces that that are making up the CCU controller. This unit will be on the market really soon. I'm really rushing this thing through, but I've got to make sure everything's fine. Anyhow, I'll see you in the next video.